Good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2025. It is just about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is the Finance Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And we have some guests here today. And so we're going to start right in with the departmental budget meetings. And the first item is the Department of Public Works. So I don't know how you want to turn this over to John or you or combination.
Let me kick it off and then I'll turn it over to John and Kim.
If everybody wants to get their budget book in order, it's on page 133 that we start.
I'm going to share it on the screen here just for video purposes in case anybody doesn't have it. Public Works has several divisions that John and Kim will be talking about. They also manage the water enterprise fund, which we'll talk about separately. It's a separate budget. And I do want to comment real quick. I had a question on the salary schedule, which is on the screen here. And that's page 133 in the book. The comment specifically was on Brian Holmes on FY26 compared to Brian Holmes in FY25, which is in a different spot. And so the thing we got to remember here is that these aren't one-for-ones necessarily. And so the issue that happened last year, really, and remember, I do these right either just before or right after Labor Day. So things change between then and when they get finalized. So that position that Brian Holmes was in last year, at that time of being prepared, it was, I wrote it down, but who was that last year before Brian?
Kevin.
No, the former transfer station.
Oh, Barry.
Barry Clifford, Barry was the,
Yep.
And he made an order of magnitude of about $92,000. But in between him retiring, I put in Brian's name and we didn't have the replacement at that time, but since Barry had been up in that 92,000 range, we budgeted a higher amount, the 88,000, but that's not in fact what Brian, who ended up getting the position, made. He made about 79 and a half. And so when you see him going from the working foreman in the sanitation to a working foreman in the highway department, it's a similar foreman position, a similar foreman scale, and that represents his raise from the 79 or 80,000 or so from the 25 to 26. So it's not always a one-for-one, just because you see something in there last year's line that they necessarily, it's what's budgeted, it's not necessarily what's actually paid. And that's an example. You know, if it's if you pick, say, Kelly Hitchcock was there last year in the exact same position, and she's here in 26, exact same position. It's a much better, that's a one-for-one because it's the same person, same position, and we budget actually what they're going to make. But the Brian Holmes situation is where we budgeted something higher because he wasn't in that position at the time, so we budgeted an amount, but that's not what we actually ended up being paid. So little anomalies like that do occur sometimes when we have changeover. And you'll also have similar questions on the shellfish area. We had a resignation or termination, which led to a reorganization of natural resources, and we needed some leadership in that division. And so we repurposed that position into a working foreman, just like we have working foreman leading each of the other divisions. So those are a couple of the changes that you see on this page. And with that, I will turn it over to John. And one last thing is, again, this is back in the time we were making some transitions. Kim is now our assistant DPW director and is doing a lot of great work for us, coordinating a lot of activities. I have her listed as the administrative coordinator in the water enterprise. She still largely leads that whole effort. But maybe in the future, we might look to reorganize those positions as we go forward. But as of now, she's paid out of the water enterprise, but she's the assistant DPW director with some expanding responsibilities. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Okay, well, Rich did my introductions, so I'm John Ruffley for those of you who I haven't met, haven't met Patty. I don't know who else, but I am the DPW director, and as most of you know, the DPW, there's 5 departments under the DPW. Natural resources, building maintenance, transfer station, the water department, and the DPW itself. And with that, Kim's actually going to go through each department, and then we'll answer questions together at the end when you, or whatever you have left.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim St. Aubin, whoever doesn't know me. So the DPW department consists of John, myself, our admin, Sarah Narachi, our foreman, Brian Holmes, one other machine operator, and then 3 skilled laborers. And we are currently now fully staffed, finally. So we maintain public roadways, sidewalks, some repaving and regrading of public roads. We handle beach sand replenishment as needed and beach parking lot maintenance and all of the trash pickup. We manage stormwater drainage, cleaning of catch basins, and maintaining ditches. We aid in implementing energy efficient solutions and upgrades to public buildings to reduce costs. Care and maintenance of Field of Dreams, Windmill Green, and all of the town-owned buildings. We maintain landscaping along public roadways, medians, public spaces, and replacing street signs. We respond to disasters such as floods, storms, and snowstorms, repairing and restoring damaged infrastructure. We clear snow and ice from roads and public areas during the winter to ensure public safety. We also plow approved private roads with an amount of over 3 inches of snow. We work with other departments to plan for the development of infrastructure. We engage and provide information to residents, gather their input on infrastructure projects and address their concerns and inquiries. We plan for future needs and maintain capital improvement plan to ensure future infrastructure. And we also manage and maintain the fleet of vehicles and equipment used by public works teams, including snowplows, trash trailers, and other machinery. Increase in public works budgets were mainly supply increase. Natural resources has 4 employees, which Rich kind of mentioned before. So we have a natural resource foreman, Stephanie Sykes, who also serves as our shellfish constable and our ACO. And we have recently hired Stephanie an assistant natural resource officer to aid in all those duties. And that gentleman is Nick Sanders, who actually was a formerly part-time seasonal employee. In addition to that, we have Scott Richards, our harbor master, and Mike O'Connor, natural resource officer. They maintain aid for safe navigation of our waters and swimming areas. They respond to vessels in distress, marine emergencies, and conducting boat patrols. The municipal propagation of shellfish seed, stocking oysters at Salt Pond, enforcement of shellfish bylaws, providing learn to shellfish educational events, the permitting and education and enforcement for town-owned and private aquaculture sites, landscaping and maintenance of conservation areas and town landings, maintenance and management of herring runs, animal-related education, enforcement, emergency sheltering, barn inspections and aquaculture grant inspections, permitting, vessel storage, moorings, dockage, and wait lists. They also aid the DPW in DPW tasks, management and permitting of commercial shellfishing and recreational shellfish. Now on to facilities maintenance. Facilities maintenance is made up of our facilities manager, Scott Baird, and 3 custodians. They're responsible for overseeing the maintenance and repair and cleaning of all public buildings such as town hall, library, rec, COA, DPW, PD, and FD. They are also responsible for the maintenance of the rental properties owned by the town. Professional and technical services that go under the facilities maintenance budget include sprinkler testing, fire alarm testing, fire extinguisher inspections, pest control, HVAC maintenance and repair, generator maintenance contract, elevator inspections and permits, overhead door maintenance, wastewater treatment systems, electrician services, plumbing services, and locksmith and door repairs. Transfer station is next. The transfer station is made up of 4 employees. There is 1 foreman, who is Ben Christian. We have 1 machine operator and then 2 laborers, one of which is Steve in our gatehouse. We take in waste collection from households and private garbage contractors, and waste is then consolidated into containers. We manage recycling, sorting, and haul recyclables to recycling facilities. We safely store waste materials until they are taken to their destination, organize and manage the transfer of waste and recyclables, comply with regulations related to waste handling, ensure that the transfer station runs safely to protect workers and citizens in the environment, keeps accurate records of logs of waste and recyclables. Black Earth is our subcontractor who picks up and hauls our food compost for us. And we actually pay for that through a recycling grant. I'm gonna go on to, do we want to talk about
Yeah.
that first and then, yeah,
What gets hauled and paid for by grant?
food compost?
Oh, so you finally bought a liftgate truck?
No, they
pick it
come,
up.
they pick it
They
up.
pick it up,
Yeah, yeah,
So is that completely covered then, 100%
Yeah.
compost?
Yeah.
That's great.
good,
Very good.
great, yeah.
If there are questions, guys, can you make sure you put your yourself up to a microphone? That
Yeah.
first question, we couldn't hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Fred,
I just want to know which part of the budget was paid for by a grant.
I'm going to ask you to do a little bit better job with the microphone. Pull it closer to you, please.
We can hear.
Do I have to say it one more time?
Yeah, I think so, because somebody didn't hear
So
you.
I was questioning which part of the budget was covered by a grant. And Kim said that it was covered by the food compost and waste, which we've been trying to get going for years.
And your answer was,
It's covered by a,
if you
sorry.
could do the same
Yep.
thing, please.
It's covered by a recycling grant that we receive
And how often do they pick up?
once a week, Fridays.
And will that continue permanently, the grant?
Yep. It's a recycling grant that we get, every year, as long as we comply with X, Y, and Z, when we fill out said surveys, then we receive.
And
X
is
amount.
Dennis still the recycling, does it go to Dennis or does it go somewhere else?
No, it goes to the Black Earth, which is,
I believe they're off Cape.
they're off.
Guy in Sandwich with the pig farm?
I think they're off Cape.
Yeah.
The county's looking at a site in Sandwich at
yeah.
the joint.
Well, I
base.
know when we were looking at it before, Dennis was serving as sort of the collection point for
Yeah.
this
Uh-huh.
part of the Cape, but that's not the case.
Separate. it's
They're
a
going
different
all the way to
company.
where, okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's great.
Are there any plans to do commercial waste?
For us to haul commercial waste? So we only have 1 machine operator driver right now. So he's hauling mainly recyclables. So we'd have to have someone else with a CDL to be able to haul commercial waste. So we're using a subcontractor right now for commercial waste.
I think that's what the county is looking at, is taking in the restaurant waste, and, you know,
Schools?
schools, yeah, they're looking to build a big facility at the joint base. They're in talks with the base. It's an ongoing,
Yeah, and prior to that, just kind of, I think it fell apart because of the cost of a facility, but Yarmouth at their transfer station, which is right off exit 8 or whatever it is now, old exit 8, where the septic treatment plant was looking to build an anaerobic digester, and they were trying to sign up all the restaurants and landfills from Provincetown up to Yarmouth as a collection point to put it through an anaerobic digester. I see Jerry has a question, Mary.
Jerry?
Yeah, thanks. I think Kim answered the question of how long do the grants go? I would just want to slide over to something a little different. It's the first time this year that I've ever been hit by constituents, by taxpayers coming to me, looking at the plowing budget for private roads. Are you okay on that? It seems as though that 1 6-inch snowstorm, I had 4 people call me up and ask about, is the town going to plow? Because it came fairly late. I think the town eventually plowed, but it was very late. And I was just wondering if there's an issue with that. Has there been a change? Is the cost so high that you have to delay plowing, etc.? And then the second is, on last Sunday, I think people called the roads weren't plowed, but I think Kim answered that by saying it's when it's 3 inches or more. So I think Sunday was less than 3. So if you can kind of let me know that, so I can let these people know what your response is. Thanks.
Yeah, Jerry, thank you for that. I think, yeah, definitely last Sunday, we didn't get as much snow. And I think usually so we have 3 new plow drivers this year, and it's gonna take a little training and time to get everybody out there to know all the roads. But usually, you know, if people call, we get right out there. And there also a misconception sometimes on what roads are private roads and which private roads we plow. A lot of times we'll get calls and it's not a road on the list. So
Right.
I think that's a good question to ask too, when they come to you, is your road, has your road been plowed in the past by the town?
Right. No, I appreciate, thanks. I appreciate it. It was not, I wasn't trying to complain. I was trying to get an answer to respond to someone who's has come to me, and I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, great. It was a good question, and
John?
we get the question a lot too, so.
John, can you talk about the regulations on when you would plow a private road versus
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Because you have some requirements, right?
Yeah, so the requirements are, there's a few requirements. The main one is that the road has to be paved. And I believe our regulations say at least 20 feet wide. So it's pretty, most private roads are dirt, you
Right.
know, unless they've had the water line recently. And then
In
that has made it so we could plow. We're plowing quite a bit now, right?
Well, they have to apply to.
Yeah, yeah,
that,
right.
you
There's
know,
a,
so they
there's a
have to go through
process,
the
isn't there?
process,
There's a
yeah.
process.
To be accepted by the
Yeah.
town in order to.
It doesn't
No.
have to be accepted by the town, but it has to be acceptable to our regulations, which are, like I said, 20 feet wide, paved.
Doesn't have,
You know, we have
you
some,
can't get around.
yeah, trees have to be, it has to be clear of trees. And we'll give them the opportunity to go out and clear the trees. And, you know, we don't just say no. We'll tell them what they need to do to be,
I knew it was strict.
to be able to.
Is there a public list that Jerry can refer to when people
Mhm.
talk?
Yeah.
Call?
Yes, it's on
Yeah.
the
You know that
website.
list, Jerry?
No, I've seen it a while back, but my memory doesn't. I
Like
don't
all of
remember
us.
where it is. So,
It is on the
it's on the
website.
website. Okay.
Yeah,
On what
we can
website?
email it. What's,
What website is it on?
It's on the DPW page.
DPW page.
Page. Right.
John, does that once they're accepted as a private road, does it get added to a route, or is it and get served at the same time as the regular rest of the roads on the route get served, or is it after the regular routes?
It's
So that-
after the
that's-
regular routes.
yeah, typically it's once all the town roads are plowed, then we do the privates. And again, it's anything over 3 inches. So a lot of times people will see the town roads are getting done and their privates aren't, but that's the regulation we put into place, the town put into
Yeah.
place.
Don't a percentage of the people that live on the street have to approve?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a,
100.
oh,
I thought that was for acceptance, not for.
For plowing as well.
yeah, yeah.
I can speak
Kate?
to this a little teeny bit. When I moved here in 2012, January of 2012, I called and I said, we've had a lot of snow and I'm wondering when we're going to get plowed. And I discovered we were on a private road that wasn't scheduled to be plowed. Couple of years later, the town allocated money for private roads to be plowed. And then I went through the process with my neighbors. There are actually 4 houses on my street. 5 actually. and I needed to get permission from everybody. And then there was tree work that needed to be done because there were low hanging branches that could be dangerous to the plow operators. So my question is, since we are approved, do we need to reapply every few years, or once we're approved, we're good?
You're good. Once you're approved,
Yay.
you're good.
You are,
Thank you.
but we do
Yeah.
inspect the roads. So if there's, over the years, more trees, are hanging down, we will contact whoever the contact person is on the list and let you know that, these trees need to be trimmed before we can continue to plow this year. So.
Yeah, I have a lovely pine tree that I'm in love with, and it has some branches now that need to be pruned because they're a little low. And I confess that the plow driver came through and sort of went around that, and we've put snow poles up. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Mary, I just want to comment since we're talking about snow on page 142. Just some new finance committee members, they may not realize snow and ice has a special section under Massachusetts state law that when you appropriate an amount of money for snow and ice, you're not allowed to reduce that appropriation. So that's why you rarely see snow and ice appropriations increase, because you don't want to commit yourself to a level of spending. Especially when you might have a mild winter and not need it, when you're looking to cut other things, you can't cut it back once you increase it. And so, we've got it at this level, can handle a couple of minor incidents, maybe a few minor incidents throughout the course of a winter, but big incidents will put us over, and that's considered a legal deficit for us to incur. And we usually frequently do, and that's just another reason why we need free cash. If we don't have the money within the budget so typically we'd either ask for a reserve fund transfer from the finance committee when we have a snow and ice deficit, or we'd ask for the legislation that allows for a year end with the select board and the finance committee, usually transferring from our health insurance appropriation, where we generally have some savings to cover the deficit. And absent those things, we would have to have an article at town meeting to supplement this fiscal year's budget and fund it out of free cash. So kind of, some of the reasons we do all the things we do gives us the flexibility to address these things without hamstringing ourselves by increasing a budget that's unable to be reduced. So
But there's 15,000 for private plowing plus the 80 is the full budget for plowing?
total budget's 84,000. We just have a
What about
break.
the 15 for the private plowing?
It's part of the 84.
It is.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's included.
And it's just kind of a recognition of the fact that we don't really break it out by this detail too much in the.
thank you.
How close are we to that 84 this year?
We were just
Yeah,
looking at
just
that.
thinking about
That's the most snow we've had, I feel like, in a while.
We also, this year, salt has been hard to come by. So, we haven't gotten everything that we've ordered. We're okay, we're fine, we have enough. But we may come way under budget just because the salt reserve is hard to come by right now.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't know the reason. It's been all over the
Or the-
news.
The answers we get are the barges just aren't coming in. So wherever, the salt comes from overseas and it's just, they're
It's
they're
not
not.
funny.
It
The
is.
salt
yeah.
comes from overseas.
I know, it's funny that you have to buy sand. Salt comes from overseas and we purchase sand.
Well,
Oh,
when
dear.
we get our desalinization plant on the seashore constructed,
Exactly.
we'll use that salt for our roads.
We can go back to the old days.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted. Okay.
Did you have another question, Fred?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did
Uh,
want, before they moved ahead,
Yes.
you mentioned several things, Kim, just bringing it back to the budget in case you have any questions or hear it from anybody in the community. So the highway department and DPW admin budget is page 136. And the big increases here are, as Kim mentioned, in this area of supplies, particularly vehicle repairs, heavy equipment, the costs of the parts that go into that have increased quite a bit. And that's the biggest driver in this area of the budget. And then under page 137 under vehicle supplies, because they have to maintain there's a repair line and then there's an actual vehicle supply line. That had to go up a bit. So that's one of the bigger increases in that area. And I think that's it there.
Actually, I have a question, Rich, on, you're talking about vehicle repair, where, it's, line item 14222. Where we had the actual back in 24 of 47,673, and you've got it down to 30,000.
Right. Got a big repair. Hopefully it doesn't happen again.
I'm just wondering something happened in 24 to cause it to.
Yeah.
Where are we on,
I'm on page
Page 130.
136.
Actual.
136, yeah, at the top of the page there under vehicle repairs, and I
yeah, we
see
went
that
over
the
quite a
actual
bit.
was 47,000 and 24, and we've got a budget of 30 now.
Yeah. Yeah, again, like Rich said, sometimes we could get one major breakdown that would cost us
Might have been the
Ten-
sweeper.
the sweeper. It was the sweeper. Yeah, we had a large repair bill
Mm.
for the sweeper. Those are things you can't budget for.
So we budget for the normal and the routine, and then in
Normal
this
wear and
case,
tear.
what happened in 24, if I recall, I think there's probably savings under the roadway maintenance and improvements area of the budget. So even though we budget all these things out, the department heads and myself and Jackie have the flexibility to manage within these line items as long as we don't overspend the total of the department. And so the savings on the roadways work that we either didn't do or deferred to cover the fact that we had a big cost on the sweeper in that year. So thanks for mentioning, because that jogs my memory now.
Right, yeah.
So we managed to stay, by managing the rest of the budget, to cover, have savings in
Cover
some
that-
line items to cover
The
that overage.
unexpected cost.
And Rich, we own all these vehicles. We don't lease them anymore, right? Everything.
Equipment you're
Red
talking about.
loaders, cars, trucks, all of it, right?
Yeah.
And what's the disposal process on that? Are they like a 5-year lifespan and then
25, 30 year.
No,
And
so
then, so this past, summer, we had an auction, so
Mm.
our surplus equipment, we
well,
auctioned
you got a
off.
new front end loader at the transfer station?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what you do with the old one.
yeah, so that one we traded the old one in on that.
Oh, okay, cool.
But if they're that bad and in a tough shape, they usually go out in the
Auction.
backyard and we auction them off, or we'll scrap it.
So one of the things, and it's a great question, Fred, because it goes to the philosophy of the capital budget.
Yeah.
But in the capital budget, every year we have a fleet inventory for each department and a townwide. And I asked everybody to update it. And part of that update is considering, right sizing of the fleet. So you mentioned the trade-in on the loader. Typically, we are going to, if I saw that somebody was buying a new loader, I'm going to ask what happened to the old loader, because I don't want to be adding equipment unless there's a justifiable reason. Typically, the fleet inventory we have is what we budget to, because that's what we're expecting to have. If there needs to be a change to it, that's something we'd hash out and talk about, because we don't want to be adding, multiple vehicles that have to be maintained and all that stuff. So, so normally when we're buying an asset at this point, we're replacing an old one, and that old one is going to be traded to reduce the cost of the new one. And then also on every department, but DPW in particular, we give them, I forget the amount of money, John, is it 80 something thousand?
87, I believe we went up to.
$87,000 every year in the capital budget for their fleet replacement program, which just covers what I call the duty trucks. I think it's 7 or 8 that the staff drive around, the 1 tons. Not that, so that puts them on a replacement schedule, and I think we have it pegged at 7 years on those duty trucks. So 7 years on the duty trucks. Heavy equipment is anywhere between 10 and 20, 25 years. But those aren't budgeted for. They're only in the capital plan, and if we need them, we either need to have free cash or we got to borrow for it. I see Jerry has a question.
Jerry has a question. Jerry?
Yeah, I'm the question guy today. Curious on looking at hauling trash and hauling recyclables. I mean, two questions. Where do we haul them from our transfer station? And what are, for want of not knowing the terminology, what are the tipping fees for each? I mean, are we saving a significant amount by recycling cans, et cetera, and so forth?
Take that?
Yeah, sure. So we have a contractor to haul trash. M&M is our contractor. And they cost $600 per load. And then we have one machine operator who hauls all of our recyclables. So again, if we had another machine operator maybe that could haul, that would be something we could look at, taking in-house. Right now, we are hauling our trash to, it's now called Reworld. It was CMAS. So that's
Mhm.
something I didn't talk about before, is that contract we just extended, and that just went up.
Yeah.
Let me find that.
On page
Is that the? it went up
146.
$95 a ton?
Yeah, $95 a ton for calendar year 2025, then it goes up to $113.50 per
Wow.
ton for 2026 and up from there.
And what was it, what were we paying in 2024 before the 95?
83?
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe it was high, yeah, in the eighties.
Yeah.
It's significantly going up.
The other thing I want to point out
CMAS
here,
contract
because
went-
I was going to mention it, so it's a good question, Jerry. Also under where you see that the contract price, which we've now baked into the budget book, so is some history here that people can pay attention to, but also the tonnage. So obviously, the tonnage affects the cost. So in FY '24, we had 3,800 tons, '23, 39, almost 4,000, and '22, 3,452 tons. So key part of this budget, and I've come back to you a couple times over the last few years on this, is a lot of times when we run up with problems and become short on this line item here under the waste tipping fee, it's because we've had a lot of activity and more tonnage than we planned on. And so now we're being very discreet and upfront about this, is this budget provides for 3,800 tons in FY '26. So if we end up hauling 4,000 tons, we're going to be short. And so I'll come back to you, ask for reserve fund transfer. On the other side, though, oh no, we don't get fees on this one. We only get on the commercial, so never mind. So it's important not only what the price is, which I have in the book now, and we can see the escalation, but it's also the tonnage, so. That 3,800, it's,
Are the fees that we collect, I know didn't we just up the fees?
Yes,
Are the fees that we collect enough to cover the cost,
they are right now, yeah.
even with the increase going
Yes.
from 90 or 80 to 95? And then again, does that mean we're going to have to increase them again next year?
No, we're in good shape for a couple of years, the way we figured it out with that budget. We
Mhm.
should be in good shape.
So you've actually run an expense versus revenue analysis?
Yeah, as much as we could.
I did when the select board set the fee.
I did too. And
Oh.
it didn't wash back then. I don't know about now.
How,
I'm skeptical of it, right? This has
before
always
we,
been one of my.
before we went up.
Well, when we looked at paper throwback several years ago, the taxpayers were subsidizing the hauling. Now, whether that's true or not now, I don't know, but I suspect it may be close. Especially if we're getting increased tonnage. Same thing applies to and I don't know why, we have a lot of C and D waste that we're not, I think we lose money there.
So the C and D fee, and this is something I gotta stay on with John and Kim each year. Philosophically, we're looking to get a return of 30% on the C and D, so if we haul 1,000, just make it easy, $1,000 of something, it costs us $1,000, our fee ought to be 1,300 to cover some of our indirects. And when it comes to whether the fee is appropriate in covering the costs, I think that's a good exercise for us to go through outside of budget season. But last year we were over, I think, 950,000 plus or minus on revenue from stickers for landfill and gate collections. And if you look at the page here, you got your waste tipping fee, your recycling transport, and your demolition C and D. it's quite a bit less than that. Of course, that doesn't account for staff and staff benefits. So that's the exercise.
Overhead, I mean, if you
Yeah.
do a real budget analysis
Right.
and add in the overhead of the town, that's where the numbers come from.
But just for the direct costs, we're certainly covering that, but the concern would be the staffing and the benefits.
Well, in municipal finance, which I'm not familiar with, but, in corporate finance, you look at the revenue and expense together for each department. In this one, it's kind of mixed up, so you don't see them side by side.
No, but I think anytime we get in front of the select board and have a fee hearing, I have that analysis done, because we have also a requirement that we're not allowed to charge fees that are, you can always be a little bit off, but you don't want to be exorbitantly higher, your fees be generating revenue exorbitantly higher than the cost of providing the service. Because there's been, some famous court cases on that essentially is a different form of a tax. You're not recovering costs, right? So we're sensitive to that, so.
One of the thing that, do we have equivalent of tipping fees for bottles and cardboard, et cetera? And are they lower than what we have to pay, what was formerly known as CMAS, whatever the new name is? Kim, I'm sorry, I didn't remember.
Reworld.
World, okay. Are the tipping fees for the recycling less than what we pay at Reworld when we transport this stuff to them?
We go to a few different places with our recyclables, and after our last rate hike, we went up. So we're charging just above the cost of recycling of what we're paying right now on most of the items. There's some items that fluctuate with the market. Paper and cardboard, sometimes they pay us for it. Sometimes we have to pay for it. But typically we're high enough to cover our costs as much as we can. Again, like Rich said, if we added in our labor and,
Mhm.
we wouldn't have a transfer station because we'd be so high.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, but the point is that, what is it, the $93 or $95 we're paying now for trash, we pay less than that to unload the recyclables. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
That's one of the things I get a question every once in a while. Well, does it make sense to have us separate all this stuff? Are we costing more to transport the recyclables and dump them? And
We take
we're
in.
not. We're saving everything we do, that the citizens of Eastham do to separate recyclables and work that at the landfill, where we're trained pretty well, is saving the town money, besides helping the environment.
We still pay to get rid of it.
We try to, and we do still pay. At the end of the day, recycling does cost money. Recycling costs everybody money.
John or Kim, do you happen to know the tons of recycling that we've done in a recent year? Any idea on that?
No.
'Cause that would be, if we could get that, I could send that out to the committee and to Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, we have.
That'd answer the
we have
question.
breakdown.
But for example, Jerry's question is, for sake of argument, if it was, 1,000 tons of recycling and you just threw it into the waste stream and got rid of it, well, we'd be paying $113 for that 1,000
Right.
tons per ton. But last year, our actual for recycling transport was $9,600. So what's the differential there, right? So,
Okay.
so if I knew
Yeah.
the tonnage, I knew how much we would save if we just did it through Reworld. So it would cost us X amount of dollars having it go through Reworld
Right.
versus it only costs us, 10 grand or whatever.
Right. That's in a sense, telling the citizenry that separating our recyclables costs the town less than if we didn't separate our recyclables. That's what I got it. Thank you. And I'm done. I'm done harassing.
I'd like to know, Jerry's question is a good one, exactly what is costing us. In other words, we're talking about pieces here and the pieces here and what we pay for this and what they pay us for this and all the different contracts and one thing or another. And we've got we're charging our residents a fee for this and a fee for that and the mattresses and whatever it is. And the cost of people, salaries, what is the cost of running that entire operation over there? I think that would be information that would be interesting.
Like the whole transfer station?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Pretty
have
easy
those
to
numbers.
do.
We
Yeah,
do have that. We do it. I
Yeah.
mean, Rich and I, we.
Yeah.
So
I did that analysis.
Yeah.
They have all the data because every time the truck goes over the scale going outbound, whether it's cans or glass, they know how much tonnage it is. They
Mhm.
know how much it's paid for. It's just a matter of somebody doing the numbers. But
Right,
that
right.
takes time and.
Oh, I agree.
You really want to, if it's really an effort to find out if we're making money or losing.
Right,
money,
right, right,
one
right.
thing, you know, But the numbers are definitely there because they take great records, I'll tell you.
Mhm. But if we're losing money, should we be increasing the fees that we're charging?
Well, we don't make money on recyclables.
Yeah.
pretty
No,
much
but I'm
across
just
the
saying that the cost of the operation.
Well, there's a point though, Mary, where, why is it that we take one department like the DPW and we say, if we're going to run a transfer station, it has to support itself. Whereas we don't do that to the library. We don't do that to the COA. We don't do that to administration. We don't do to other departments. So it's odd to me that we pick out certain services that we provide and then we insist that they are breaking even, self-sustaining, whatever you want to call it, when our values are saying that we want to recycle. So if we want to recycle and the law requires us to recycle and the environmentalists want us to recycle, then that's a value that the community has, then why should the people that recycle pay extra money to recycle? See what I'm saying? I mean,
I understand what you're saying.
okay,
But
It
we
just-
don't charge a fee for all those other departments. I think that's a.
Yeah.
right, we
Valid.
don't, and we could, I mean,
So
you
if
know.
you're charging a fee, the taxpayer wants to know if that fee is covering the cost. I
Yeah.
think that's where Mary's going with this.
Just real quick math, this is quick and dirty, so don't hold me to it. And I'm happy to come back with a better analysis. It sounds like a great summer project and discussion. Because I think this is the first full year of the new fees.
Yeah,
And we're likely with the new contracts that we got revisiting it during FY 26 for FY 27, so we're gonna have to have this discussion anyway. But my quick math, if I take the salaries of the transfer station folk with the direct costs of actuals from 24, I get a direct cost of 953,000. And I think we collected about 970,000 in transfer station tickets and fees and permits, stickers, I mean.
Stickers, yeah.
so we're making money, Mary.
But, that doesn't include benefits.
Yeah.
And, the tough part about that is, we don't operate as discrete operations. And we got a highway division, we got a transfer station division, we got and we got snow plowing operations, we got work that has to be done in the community. All those staff work together to do any and all of those
To
things.
accomplish the
So it's
goal.
not like you're
Right.
assigned just to the transfer station.
Right.
You might transfer them down to do work in the barn, or they might need a highway guy or an equipment operator.
If
or
someone's sick, yeah.
Yeah, so, it's
Or
all,
even the sticker office is a perfect example, because the sticker office, which is recreation, processes the transfer station stickers.
That's
So you
correct.
could say, well, we need to take 10% of their costs and
That's right.
put it on.
and then I
So
guess
it's
the
like a
final
direct
piece of that,
cost.
which, I went through this in a couple towns, it was a bit contentious, but the way I addressed it is not everything is 100% self-sustainable. There's
Sufficient.
always a general purpose to something, so you
Mhm.
shouldn't expect the users always to cover the cost, because sometimes like
Yeah, our
most
general taxes should cover some of
the most
costs.
recent one I had was a building inspectional services division that somebody asked me to help out. And the way it kind of cut to the chase is like, it's not reasonable to expect everybody that's applying for permits to pay the cost of the inspectional services department, because there's some general inspectional services that just have to happen throughout the community. And
By
so
law,
what
right?
been a lot of back and forth, and the bottom line is, okay, an appropriate amount that the fees ought to cover is 50% of the cost of the department, and that the other 50% ought to be covered by general public in the tax rate because they provided general services to the community. So, same type of thing would have to happen here to actually get to a place where we feel good about it.
I have a question on the, you can walk in without a sticker. Is it $10
$10 for 3 bags.
for 3 bags?
Typically, 3 bags is the,
And you can pay, like, if you have like a dehumidifier, you can pay the $10 and the do you get a lot of those?
yeah.
Yes.
And do you feel like it's enough? You don't want to like charge too much where the people just throw the trash out on the street rather than come in. Do you feel like, I know a lot of the fees have come up. above-
Yeah,
above
so
the 10.
each product has so a dehumidifier, I believe is 20. So each, whatever that item is, there's 3 bags of trash is $10. That's just trash. And then other item, tires are more, there's a classification for each, anything bulkier than a bag of trash.
They have to pay for, and then they can recycle.
Mhm.
They
And
can
recycle.
So you think the $10 is a fair
Yeah.
Yeah.
amount?
Mhm.
Well, you can't recycle for free, right?
You can recycle for free.
Really?
If you have the 3 bags and you have recyclables,
But you can't just come in with a bag of bottles.
that would be $10. I think.
$10 regardless, I think,
Yeah.
if you walk
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah. And I personally, I think it's a nice service to have for people
I
to be
agree.
able to say is, as a seasonal community, you come on vacation and it's one of people's worries. What are we going to do with our trash? So to be able to say to them, you can go to the transfer station. It just costs $10.
It's only 10. And
Yeah.
also maybe that, occasionally you see household trash thrown at the beach or wherever, but if they knew it was only $10 to come in, then maybe you'll see a little.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I
Yeah, we
mean,
pay for it either way.
there's a
Yeah.
community benefit to, that's why you don't want to
Keep
be
it clean.
banging this out and getting full cost recovery typically because, the benefit to us not doing that is we're not seeing things hauled off in the middle of the woods or thrown on the side of the road or filled up the beach trash barrels and.
Yeah.
And with that, we have to take into consideration what the towns around us are doing as well. I mean, if we're too much cheaper, then we're gonna get everybody on Cape will be coming to us, if we're too high, we're gonna find it in the
If
woods.
it's not- it's
you
not
know?
Yeah.
If we're
being
charging too much for
recycled.
tires, they're gonna end up in the side of the road.
Well, I also wanted to say, I'm amazed at how great this town looks there's not a lot of people working for, I mean, there's a lot of people, you have a lot of departments, but snow's always plowed, everything's always clean, the beaches are clean. I know you had some turnover, I could see it just.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic. I
Thank
think
you.
have
Thank you.
really-
We have a great new staff too. It's working out really well.
Finally, fully
Yeah.
staffed.
I know.
So,
Or-
It was it was like
Yeah.
a year and a half
Yeah.
that you weren't.
We were
That was the
down
longest time we've ever gone, I
in
think.
DPW this summer, we were down at 3 at one point and those 3 still had to take vacation and time off. So we got through it and we have a good department. We really have a good group.
mhm.
But I see on page 133, which has everybody listed, you've got quite a few vacants.
So those were recently filled.
Oh,
So right now, all the positions. that-
because the way you're saying didn't meet.
Yeah, so they're very.
Agree with what I'm seeing here. So you're saying that all the vacants on here
They're all
have
full.
been filled.
Yeah.
That's good news, not just for us, but for you.
Yeah, it's the first time since I've been here, so it feels good and it's working out, so.
Mhm.
But that's an example, Mary. That's an example, Mary, what I talked about at the beginning of this. So next year, these vacant slots,
Mhm.
let's pick the first one that I've come across under Kelly,
Right.
76063. And we did the math when we hired all these people to make sure it worked within the bottom line of our salary budget. And I just don't know off the top of my head, but whoever filled that slot, their actual this year might be something less. Maybe it's $74,000. So when you get this next year, that comparison, the same comparison with the Brian Holmes thing, we budgeted that amount because that's where that person was that left. And so we anticipate with the environment nowadays that the replacement probably is going to be about the same amount. But sometimes we luck out and,
Depending upon their
they don't,
background.
and they might have a lower rate. But the 76 is still going to show as last year's, and then the new person will be on board and they'll have perhaps a lower rate and look like a decrease, but it's not really a decrease.
And I have a question. I know the animal control person was with the police originally. And is that now, well, there's no name on here, natural resource
It's Stephanie.
officers, just,
Stephanie
Yeah,
said.
Stephanie.
And
is
matter of
that,
fact, I'm gonna have to update that title because Stephanie is actually now the,
yeah, yeah.
what is her exact position? It's got three
Moved up
titles.
To foreman.
She's foreman
Yeah.
and
Shellfish
NCO and
constable.
shellfish
Oh, she is
constable.
still doing, or in her
She's
job
still ACO.
still includes the,
Yeah, she won't give that.
the animal control.
Yes.
Thank God.
And then we hired an
I have an ongoing
assistant
Conversation
to
with her.
do both shellfish and animal control as well.
Mhm.
So that there's more than one person that's doing that function in case Stephanie, God forbid, moves on. We still have someone who can do animal control.
Now, at one time, that was a shared job with Wellfleet.
It was for a brief
It was-
and
For a while.
shining period of time, yes.
Yeah, it didn't work out, or?
It didn't work out.
Well, it was through the police.
Yeah.
Wellfleet just happened to have a police officer,
Mhm, mhm.
and that's how we were structured, as through doing it. Sometimes, small towns do it through the police department because they're getting the call first, I guess. But it's really not a police function. And then
That
that
went to
person
the police
retired.
officer.
so we no longer had the opportunity to share that position with Wellfleet. So we had to scramble to find our own
Okay.
way to do it.
So it was moved to the DPW
Yep, natural resources.
department.
There's really more, and I'm sure Stephanie could come talk to you sometime about it. And she's very passionate about it, but
Yeah.
different towns have different levels of natural resource departments. And Yarmouth is very vibrant operation. They're getting into wildlife and, the coyote tracking and
They
and
carry guns.
the rabies things. Yeah, they carry weapons.
Yeah.
So there's a whole thing to it. So there's a range of services that could be offered, but, I think we've kind of found a happy medium here for us. I see if Peter has a question, but
Yeah,
I did,
Peter?
Go ahead, Rich.
since we were talking about staff, Peter, before you go, I just want to
Yeah.
talk to John and remind you, had a couple of new members too. I just want to make sure everybody understands or remembers that some of our staff are relatively new. We beefed up in past years. I think this might be our middle of our second year now of having a facilities foreman. And if John and Kim can talk to that a little bit, in my opinion, that has saved the town
A
a
lot of-
huge amount of money to self-perform a lot of that work that we would otherwise be contracting out, a lot of times at prevailing wage. So can you speak to that just a little bit on the facilities shop?
So on the facility side of things, having a full-time facilities person, means we are spending more money out of the operating budget, but we're getting more for the service as well. We're not putting things out to bid that we would normally probably have to put out to bid because we didn't have the staff. Which, I kind of brings us into, in future years, we may look at needing an assistant for that person because we are doing more and it's working out. So,
And it's not only the doing of more, it's also the availability of vendors, getting them to show up on time. Having faith that, we have some trusted vendors, but sometimes they get turnover in staff and you don't know always what the quality is that you end up getting. And you can end up finding that, you would have been better off doing it yourself and not having to wait a month or two for them to show up and have deal with that problem for that length of time. And finally, my last point on it is, and I don't know if this is what John has in mind, but specialty vendors, if it was an assistant, somebody that is certified in HVAC, for example, would be a huge benefit to the town. Because HVAC techs are very costly, very busy and hard to show up.
And what I like about having a facilities person that I think is most useful and cost saving is that prior to this, if we have 10 buildings, say, something is going to go wrong in one of those buildings and we're going to call a vendor, an outside vendor. So the heat's not on at town hall, we would call the heating company. Whereas now we have Scott come over or send someone over to check it out, check the thermostats. Maybe they can tweak something. Maybe there's a leak somewhere. They can diagnose the problem before we have to go for an outside vendor or a repair. And I think that that saves us hours of time and money, because anytime those vendors from outside come, they charge us a lot more money than. So I see that as a huge
Yeah, it's
benefit.
definitely an added value that has worked out for us. And
I have another question. I'm still back on page 133. On Scott, I'm looking at down at the bottom, facilities, talking about facilities foreman Scott Baird, amount allocated to rental fund. Is that the Affordable Housing Trust? Is that monies? What is that?
So you might recall, this is 3 or 4 town meetings ago, we put on a article to adopt specific legislation that created a rental revolving fund. So that rental revolving fund does include monies from the housing units that we own. And it includes rents from Town Center Plaza
Oh,
and all
okay.
the town-owned facilities that are used privately. And so our facilities director does do,
You're paying part of.
does
the
do work
salary
for some of those
services
things.
that are coming in from the
Right.
rents that the
That's-
town is receiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Did Peter ever get his question answered?
Right.
He hasn't even
didn't.
asked it, I don't think.
Okay.
I
He
deferred.
got discouraged and put his hand down.
No, yeah, Zoom puts it down now once you speak, so anyway, yeah, my question was on page 139. On the other charges and expenses. So I see it's level funded at 70,000, but the actual from 24 was only 28,000. I'm wondering if that's why we're level funding it at such a higher amount.
Largely, that's infrastructure work, and I would say that we haven't had to do a lot of that, largely due to the water project being ongoing. And so I've continued that historical level of funding. So as such time comes that we don't have water project funds to pay for these things, that we have the money in the budget to pay for them. And we also have some increasing stormwater responsibilities. And so this money can, we don't need to increase the budget because of those new responsibilities. It's all kind of already there. And I think in 24, this was a conscious thing. I don't know the exact details, John, and you probably don't remember at this point either. But that was the year where we had that significant repair of the loader, so it was intentional to not spend as much because that we needed the money, the savings from this line item to pay for that repair to the loader.
Thanks.
If you look at the bottom line, Peter,
Yeah.
the actual's almost 173 versus actually we overspent it. You look at FY 24 budget to FY 24 actual.
Right. Right, but that was before the budget got jacked up to 70.
No,
Right,
it's always been 70.
Always talking about 24 actual.
on 24, it was 28.
28 and 24, and then it's up to 70 now.
So,
I'm misunderstanding. It's the budget's been 70,000.
We just spent 28.
We
oh,
spent,
okay, the actual, yeah, right.
yeah, that's the
actual
actual we
is
spent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yep.
The other side of that is, being shorthanded, we have a lot of drainage work and catch basin work that we haven't been able to do because we're shorthanded. We were shorthanded. So this year we'll definitely be digging into that line item and getting these structures repaired and replaced.
And I have a question sort of related to all of this, the line painting. We don't have a lot of streetlights in town, and I'm out a lot at night, and a lot of other people are out at night, and the cars go by my house for the high school. And if I don't see the white lines, I have a hard time in the dark seeing where I'm supposed to be. What do you have a schedule for lines on the roads, or what's the process for all of that?
Yeah, so we will be doing a lot of line painting this spring. Because of we've done a lot of repaving.
Mhm.
We've been waiting for the paving to be done, and now I don't think we have any main roads we're gonna pave this year, so we'll be doing a lot of painting come spring.
The water project, when we paved a road, we would go,
Oh, yeah,
they would
yeah,
paint
yeah,
it,
Yeah,
so.
I understand
yeah.
that, but I'm just saying that there are a lot of roads that
Need to be done.
are in really bad shape
Yeah.
from a white line perspective.
Right,
Let me
right.
Put it that way.
And a lot of roads didn't have white lines.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna look at that and see what we can do. We have to make sure the roads are wide enough. There's a
Mhm.
lot of narrow roads,
Mhm.
but we're gonna try to get white lines on every road as well.
'Cause to me, that's an important,
Mhm.
because as I say, since we don't have streetlights and we have older people that are out there in the dark trying to figure their way out. Yeah.
State of the right, Mary.
I'm sorry?
State of the right.
Stay to the right, into the trees, into the trees if you stay to the right.
So that brought up a question, we were using some of the water fund to pay for paving the roads.
Mhm.
And but back in phase one, we didn't because we were running the budget very tight. Some of those phase one roads still haven't been repaved.
Mhm.
Right, like Samoset, for example, is a good example, or Southeast Dam Street, I can name several of them. So what are we're still paving
Still in the
roads?
plan, Fred.
We're
Yeah.
still paving roads.
It's the
Well,
final
It's the old
stage.
roads.
Yeah, the
Yeah, so
final
we have
stage.
one more contract on the water project to wrap up. And when that's done, water project's substantially done, and we'll see how much is left within our authorization. And what do we want to do with that? Do we want to borrow the rest of it and redo all the roads, which is kind of what we're thinking? Or is there some other things, other work related to water that needs to be done as well?
Or if we're gonna dig them up again for sewer, I don't know.
For wastewater.
But we do have some in the plan for this year.
One of the considerations would be, and this is something that will be coming in front of the finance committee, it's, and we have to update the select board. We still have the final issue on, what is that called, 2E,
Yeah,
going down to,
I was gonna
Nauset
mention
Light
that so
Beach.
that people wouldn't call me.
Um, so we have to come to a decision as to what we're gonna do with that phase that couldn't move forward because of the permitting. So we got money for that, and then we have leftover money, we can do the roads, but all that at that point is gonna be on us to bond. It's not an SRF funded project, so it'll be a little more costly. With the alternative of hopefully, we could get some USDA funding, which is less expensive as well, so. Lots of things up in the air.
I have another question on page 140. I see where you've got an assortment of things that you're taking care of for various public buildings in town. But I don't see on there window washing and gutter cleaning.
So Teresa takes care of the window washing.
She's out there doing the windows at the library,
Yes.
outside of the top?
We've
I don't think so.
So, Mary, we've discussed this in the past about the library, specifically, and that's something that we need to do, and we need to hire it out.
Yeah. It was
So-
always planned that way.
Yeah, so you wouldn't probably, we could add it to the line item here, but we know when we do have it done, it gets paid for, and we are aware that, it's an issue there.
Mhm. And gutter cleaning, what is that done on all the public buildings too?
It hasn't been. Now that we have a facilities guy that, he has a large list that he's come up with it, but he's one person, so,
One person with a staff of
with us,
like 2.5.
with two
yeah.
custodians. So it is something we're looking at, and we discuss it all the time. There's times that by the end of the season, we have trees growing out of our gutters at the
Oh, I know.
DPW. So it's not something we're ignoring on
Mhm.
purpose, for sure.
Because I just think we need to make sure that we maintain our buildings and.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I think needs to be done to maintain our buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. And that did, I believe we did the library last year. We did the gutters. I don't know if we ended up hiring a window cleaner for the
The-
exterior, but
The trustees have paid for some of that in the
yeah,
past.
yeah, we've worked with you in the past.
Maybe you need to put a lift into the capital budget. one of those hydraulic lifts.
Yeah, it's,
Just for the library.
it's there. You said it, now it's already in the already on the list. Got that.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'm looking to see if there are any other, see, what do we do for the greenhead fly control?
We
That's an
don't do
assessment.
anything.
That's an assessment.
Hmm?
It used to live nowhere, so I threw it under
Natural
DPW.
resource.
It's
under
a
natural-
contract.
But it's a actual greenhead fly control district.
We are in a greenhead fly
So
control.
in the marsh, when you're
Yep.
driving like over Blackfish Creek, you see those little
Oh,
boxes.
yeah, I've seen them.
That's
Yeah.
the green
Down
head
on
fly
Bridge
control.
Road and
Yeah,
other
yeah.
places too.
So they send us they send us an assessment, just like the Veterans District sends us an assessment. We're part of the Veterans District. We're part of the,
But we own the boxes, right?
no.
No,
No, we don't.
nope, they,
Oh.
they control that.
Who-
It's a great project because they do it all and they do it seamlessly and we don't have to do anything except pay them once a year, a nominal fund, a nominal
And
amount.
who was they?
The
What-
Greenhead Fly
Greenhead
Control
Fly
District.
Control District.
What is their?
What is
I
it?
can't remember their,
That's their name.
It's part of an environmental contract through the county, I
It's a
think.
countywide program.
it's like mosquito control.
Yeah.
Same,
County.
general.
The reason the towns don't want to do it individually, I mean, what good would it do you to control greenhead flies in Eastham if Wellfleet and Orleans aren't doing it? And then, it's like, not like they care where the border is, right?
This truly sounds like a Monty Python skit.
Right?
Let's see here if I had something else. We haven't gotten to the water. We didn't get to that part.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah, yeah,
whenever
yeah.
you're done, we'll.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on the DPW part of the budget here?
That seed propagation line item, that's buying the shellfish and
Mhm.
testing the water out there.
Yep.
Do we test the water in that pond? We, the town,
The state, no.
the state does it,
Yeah.
but we pay them to do it.
I
Of course.
don't know if there's a. fee.
We have to pay for some, but not for most.
Is that
Is
the
the
only
s-
water body that the state?
The
tests
state or the
for us?
county?
Well,
Both.
I mean, they test out in the bay.
But I'm
Like the
talking-
Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, they're paying for some of our testing of ponds and the estuary and things like
Okay.
that. So it's
they
different
do it.
funding sources. No, we do it. We have teams of volunteers that do it through the health department. But I want to say there's like 36 locations, so they have to test once a week in all 36 locations. But that's separate from the beach testing, which is weekly. So it's weekly, and then if a beach
that as
fails, we do not take the sample. The county takes the sample for the beaches. And if we fail, then they have to wait 24 hours and then retest, close the beach, wait 24 hours and retest. So there's lots of different testing programs for clean water.
And the other part of that budget, that 14,000 is buying the shellfish from local. Is that, I think it's a great thing to
Yeah.
do,
Yep. Mhm.
though it must have been fun to hack them, but
I have one final question. Do you feel that your budget is sufficient? If, are there things that you feel that you should have monies for that you don't have in this budget in order to operate your operation?
I think right now, I think in the future, we need to look at the buildings and the building maintenance.
Mhm.
But other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Because there was a facility study done on the buildings.
Yeah.
And what did you find as a result of that study that perhaps we should be looking into or make?
That we
making-
should have millions and millions of more money to fix all the
Yeah.
things that are wrong with the building.
So.
Seriously.
On a capital level, Rich has done a pretty good budget, and I don't know. You know those numbers off your head for each building. but
Well, every
it's
building,
Quite a bit.
every building has an amount of money assigned to it based on the engineering study and their estimated costs, which I've bumped up for prevailing wage, local costs and inflation. So we have an estimated cost of maintaining each of our buildings for the next 20 years. and I divided that by 20 and came up with a straight line amount. So every town building gets an amount of money. It's not the exact math, so it's something less than the cost divided by 20. But or at least we're putting money towards it every year to maintain our buildings. Most towns don't. They only put money in a capital budget when they know something broke, and then 2 years later, you finally can get around to fixing it because you get the money. We get our money up front, and that's come along, and we've been doing that now for 5 years. And this past year is the first year where we've kind of done it in earnest going forward. But has saved a lot of money and time and effort in having to borrow. And so that's the idea is have the money available when the things are going wrong so you can fix it sooner rather than later. And stay up with the maintenance, prevent borrowing costs. And so the issue with that is that's all funded by free cash. And I don't know, I have the number off the top of my head. But I want to say for all town facilities, it's upwards of maybe $1 million, something close to $1 million. So that means that every year we got to generate, just for that element, at least $1 million of free cash. And so you might recall several years ago, we did a $400,000 capital override to fund vehicle replacement and equipment replacement. And that's funded by tax levy. So I think it would be a wise thing to do, at least a good portion of that facility need to be funded by the tax rate so that we have a guaranteed funding source every year and not be 100% reliant on free cash.
Because it's almost like requiring us to have a budget that's very conservative in order to have the free cash that we need to pay for it.
Right.
And right, it would enable us to tighten things up if that's a concern to people, because you wouldn't have such the need. But it's really, the tax rate's going to pay for it one way or another, and it's cheaper to pay for it upfront as you go. And instead of waiting 4, 5,
Could be
10 years,
costly.
borrowing the money after the fact, and then having to have it be debt exclusion when which tax dollars pay for that principal and the related interest. And it costs about $100,000 to issue a bond nowadays between legal costs and financial advisory fees and all that.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the water?
So shall we go on to, I think that's on, for our budget book, it's page 208.
205,
11.
205.
I have 208.
Okay, so the Eastham Water Department is responsible for the management, distribution, and treatment of our water resource. We source our water through an underground aquifer and ensure that it's treated to meet DEP standards for public consumption. The Eastham Water Department coordinates between our operator, Whitewater, our consultant engineer, Apex or Environmental Partners, and our billing company, Penachuk. We are responsible for scheduling seasonal turn-offs, turn-ons, handling final water reads, billing questions, water quality issues, leak investigation, and abatements. We are also responsible for helping the public get connected to town water, hiring a contractor and plumber, and issuing permits for connection, and assisting contractors and plumbers apply for water connection permits. The Water Department manages our Water Betterment Loan Program, which helps citizens spread the cost of their hookup out over time. We issue meters and meter pits to contractors and plumbers. Whitewater currently maintains and operates 2 well houses and 1 tower, soon to be 3 well houses and 2 water towers, and the water infrastructure. Whitewater also handles all DEP required testing and regulations. Additionally, it monitors water quality and would respond to emergencies such as leaks, contamination, or system failures. They are also they give 24-hour service. Whitewater is responsible for gate valve exercise and inspection, collection of compliance sampling, response to water quality complaints, turn-ons and turn-offs, hydrant inspection and maintenance, system flushing, dig-safe markouts, meter calibrations, meter repairs, set and unset seasonal meters, backflow testing, cross-connection surveys, preparing and submitting our consumer confidence report, and preparing and submitting our annual statistical report. They submit monthly operating reports and submit monthly DEP chemical usage reports. And they also inspect all of the water service installs. They facilitate hydrant flow tests, purchase and facilitate all of the chemical and delivery, small repairs of pump and well station equipment, respond to system alarms, and respond to customer emergencies. And then Penachuk is our billing company, and they are responsible for billing, collection, call center, maintaining a customer database, accounts receivable, and mailing bills and bill inserts. So challenges with the water enterprise budget. So we just signed a new contract with Whitewater starting July 1. So that's a 3-year contract that has 2 one-year extensions. And then our Penachuk contract is going to go to September 2025. And then that has 2 one-year extensions if we would like to continue with them. And Penachuk's price is based on how many accounts you have. So there's a 12,000 quarterly fee for up to 2,500 accounts. We have about 2,400 accounts right now. And then there's a $1.33 quarterly fee per piece that's also added on to that. So our challenges with the water enterprise budget is creating capital for future water infrastructure and maintenance. And then another thing to mention is that maybe in the future, we have the potential of bringing billing in-house, something that we could definitely do. We just might need to purchase software or hire an additional person.
Mary, I just realizing that I think what's in your book and what I was just showing on the screen is not the correct budget. I just asked Mira to go upstairs to reprint so I'm not sure where that mistake came in, but what I'm looking at doesn't have Kim's salary, for example.
Yeah, I had a question,
And,
that was one of my first questions.
So in the water department expense is low. I think that was put in before we had the final contract. So this is not a complete budget, so I apologize for that.
Which number? The 615,000 is not right?
Yeah. I'll give you a update when
But
it comes back.
are these increases in the contracts for Whitewater and Penachuk accurate?
No. No, I think, and I'm just going from the top of my head, but when Mira brings the new right copy down, we're talking upwards of a total operating budget of $1 million.
No.
And so I apologize for that. I'll have to resend this out to the group and
Hey,
update the book. But
Rich,
yeah,
Rich,
Peter?
could you, I noticed that the FY 24 actuals were missing from, a lot of this, and
Yeah, so
could you fill those in too?
I'm sure they already are. Just I don't know why
Okay.
this
Okay.
was a early working copy that somehow got into my final book.
Okay, very good.
So no, I really just need to send you a whole new page on this.
Yep.
But to cut to the chase, I mean, it kind of is what it is in a large sense. My biggest concern about this budget is I think the water rates are going to be short and we won't be self-sufficient for this year because of those contractual increases. And the solution to that, obviously you could always go up in rates, but I don't think that's the solution. I think the solution is we need the 50% of the town that hasn't connected to connect. I mean, I think we probably have an adequate rate, but just not the volume we ought to have.
Did we ever get the hotel up the street?
No.
No. So
What did you say, Fred?
I asked if we ever get the Sheraton on board.
Mm.
So that's a big water user. We got them for the fire, but not the water.
They also have PFAS too, so it would be beneficial to them to hook up.
Thank you.
So we're working on a couple things along those lines and I'm going to check in with the Board of Health to see if there's anything we can do to compel connection, especially if there's some PFAS issues. And we also have a brand new high school. And so I don't want to talk too much until I've talked to them further, but my way of thinking, we had an agreement in a sense with an old school at a certain volume, and now we've got a new school at a different volume. And so we need to really flush that out, so to speak, that issue, and perhaps start passing some of that along.
So I know we've thought about keeping the water contract outsourced versus bringing it in-house. Is it still your opinion that it's better to outsource it cost-wise than it is to bring it in-house?
I think the major thing with that is the licenses. It's so hard to, we have to have someone with a D2 and a T2 license now in town, during working hours. So if we were to bring it in-house, we would just need to make sure that they had those licenses. So
And
I mean,
that's
it's definitely,
available 24/7.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Or we could just send Kim to get those licenses.
Yeah.
She could just take that on too.
Mhm. But it's something I think John and I have talked a lot about, and maybe even having like someone from the DPW starting to follow them and watch them
Yeah.
and learn so that,
But I mean, if and when we ever take on wastewater, that may be an opportunity to have, because you need somebody of that qualifications as well for water, wastewater, right?
Mhm.
Well, Mary had asked earlier about staffing. I don't know if you have a similar comment about staffing here. But you know, you just mentioned having somebody that we could follow around to do some of the day-to-day tasks that you can take out of a contract that a provider no longer would have to do, right? So you only want them to do the high-level tasks that you need from them, not the menial tasks that you might not need from them.
I have a question. You said that there were 2,400 accounts right now. What's the number that if everybody got water, what would that account number be?
it would be 6,000 is
Six
total, yeah.
6,000.
Yeah.
So less than half of the people that could be hooked up are.
Mhm.
But I think more importantly, what's the break-even point of
Yeah,
connections that will make the water fund solvent?
I think even the goal of 10% more is probably,
Yeah, and we've tried different things, Mary. We tried a marketing program.
and it's steadily increased.
some sort of program to incentivize people. I know
Had different ones.
the betterment program and, yeah.
But one incentive that
We're gonna
probably
try.
coming this spring or sometime soon to the select board / water commissioners is rate adjustments on some, not necessarily the rate, but on some meter
Meters.
fees and things like that.
And connection fees.
And
We've
one of
never
the
had
things
connection fees.
might incentivize some people is we're contemplating talking to the select board about a connection fee. And so if you make a connection fee, I'm just making up numbers just for discussion's sake, but say $1,500, and it's not effective to say July 1, 2026, that might incentivize someone that's not connected to connect now. So.
I think we need to look at doing something to get more people hooked up in order to make it more.
We've tried some things.
I know.
It's-
I don't understand why people aren't willing to do it.
I think because it does cost money
Oh, yeah.
and they are happy with the water quality they have, they're happy with the water they have. And so until their well pump breaks or there's some problem, they're thinking they'll connect later.
Mhm.
So that makes perfect sense, right? You don't fix something that's not broken. And I think that's where we are. When we came up with this system and when the smaller system failed, then we decided to do the bigger system. I wasn't around for those conversations, but I would guess that people anticipated that we would not get 100% of connections because many people they didn't have water quality issues and they didn't need to connect. But they will when they need to. And when property changes, we see that people do connect, and part-time resident taxpayers come from places that already have public water supplies, so they tend to connect. So it's happened organically, but
When people lose their electricity for a lengthy period of time, that might help.
it's an amazing
hasn't
benefit
happened
to
in a
be
while.
on public water when
Mhm.
the power goes out. It's really
Scary when
amazing.
you don't have water.
Oh, I
And-
know.
I mean, you can have
Day,
coffee. Yeah, you can have coffee. It's awesome. I
Flush
love
the-
it.
Flush the
Is there a
toilet.
switch we can turn off?
Flush the toilet, have
And-
coffee. It makes
And people who lose their well, say, so they're gonna keep their well until
Till they have a
something
problem.
happens.
happens, yeah.
I've run into this now, this has happened a lot, and the contractors are great, and we've gotten people connected within 24 hours.
Mhm.
So that's something I like to tell people too, you know, it can be done quickly. But-
The people that are connecting now, you take a look at why they're connecting. I mean, are they new homeowners? Are they people's wells failed?
So wells failing, and then I would say that most of the people who, this is their second home and they have water in their other town, they connected right away
Yep.
because they only know public water. So anyone who's new buying a home, who's a season, they're connecting right away. So those are the people that you see now. After COVID, we had a huge year. That was our biggest year, was 22, 23.
There were a lot of second homeowners coming here
Coming here.
and they could work remotely and they didn't have.
Yeah.
Have
People
water.
did projects in their house, let's connect to water.
Mhm.
And so it's,
I'm already digging up something. I might as
yeah,
well.
I'm doing my patio, I'll do the water.
Mhm.
So it's come down since then.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
kind of at like a plateau, it's a level
Yeah.
off, no new.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not much housing activity. There's home sales are way down too. And
Right,
I
yep.
think Jackie said is everyone that buys a house does the water. If we don't
yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do.
sales, it's not gonna
Yeah.
be water.
And if you look at the vote, way back when we got it in, we just barely got
Just
the
barely, yeah.
2/3 vote. So if you look at that versus how many connections we've got.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
And then nitrates or salt intrusion. So with the rentals and the health department doing the rental certificates, if they're running into, high nitrates or salt, then the health department is just looking at them and going, you need to connect to town water. So those are a lot of the people now too.
Kate, you have a question?
Yeah, a question and also a comment. I hooked up immediately as soon as I could. And for me, the big incentive was having a fire hydrant. I mean, when I moved here, there were no fire hydrants.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you guys can comment on, do you think that people's hesitancy is around the fact that they're happy with their water and now they have their fire hydrant, which is
Right.
mitigation? And um, I also heard somewhere, and maybe someone can comment on this, that if you hook up to the water and you have the fire hydrants, your homeowner's insurance could potentially go down significantly. So that might be a sell.
Only because of the fire hydrant.
Okay.
because of
So that's
town water.
across town. That's a
Yeah.
benefit that everyone received because we
Mhm.
put hydrants in a certain percentage of the town.
I forget the number. I don't, Jackie, maybe you recall, but and people don't understand this. I mean, of course, taxes have to
lot.
go up to pay for this, but there's a significant saving on the what's called the ISO rating. I think we were rated a 9, which is basically a non-hydrogen, low fire flow community,
We got down to 4.
and now we're a 3 or a 4.
4, yeah.
And that had somewhat of magnitude. I want to say, Jackie, $400 to $500
Yeah.
savings on homeowners insurance. So your taxes have gone up, which everybody will complain about, but nobody likes to congratulate us on the savings on the homeowners insurance. If you
I
kind of
do.
net those two together, it's not as bad as you think.
And that's something you save every year.
Yeah, it's the same, yeah.
Another incentive is just costs increasing. So the contractors' costs are going to go up yearly too, which we have seen also.
So Mary, thanks to Mira, I have the
Oh.
I have the
Oh, we
correct
did.
version of the
Excellent.
budget. So I will email this out to everybody, probably after the meeting.
Okay.
But let me just tell you what it says. Salaries for this 26 are 112,624. The expense is 887,808, and I'll tell you what how that breaks down in a second. So the total is 1,432,000. And I forget what I have for a water rate estimate, but if memory serves me correctly, I'm relying on, I think, about $260,000 of retained earnings, meaning that we don't have revenues to cover this, to balance this budget for this year without charging the tax levy, which I don't mind doing for 1 year. But that means by the end of this year, so about 18 months from now, we need to have this revenue issue solved. So that's why we need these fees and these connections to happen, or a really dry year and driving up volume or something. But of that 887,000 of cost, 795,000 is the new operations contract with Whitewater, up from 365,000.
That's huge.
And was that the addition of a
Another
second
whole
license?
person.
Yeah.
So DEP requires us to have 2 licensed operators in town.
So it basically doubled the requirement from the contract before.
So one, and I actually have talked to the DPW director in Wellfleet, so John and I, we really need to follow up with Jay. And he had a lot, because they have the same problem, because they also have a requirement. So can we work together perhaps and find a way to minimize the requirement? We're never gonna get away from needing one in town all the time, but can we have a floater and save one position between the two of us type of thing?
Because they have a
use the
really
white one
tight
too?
system.
Yes.
So, and then the other big increase was, the billing contract went from 27,000 to 63,608. And I agree
Wow.
with Kim, I think we can do the billing in-house
Yeah.
but the challenge isn't really the billing, which I'm sure we could easily handle with a software purchase. It's the collection, and I'd be pretty adamant when we do the collections through our collector's office, which really changes the dynamic of the workflow of that office, adding
Personnel.
Half a person.
2,500 water bills quarterly
Yeah.
for collecting, people coming in and out. So, it's not just sending out the bills, it's the collecting of the money, because you don't want the same person sending out the bill, collecting it. It's a kind of an internal control problem, so.
So, but the bill went up because this was an option year?
Fred, can you speak into your microphone, please? Thank you.
This is an option year that they're in, Pennachuck?
Pennachuck?
Yeah.
What
Are
do you
they
mean,
finished
ours?
through the first phase of their contract?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
contract expired.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
they're in the-
expires in September, this coming September.
But they increased the price.
At the
What does it
be-
run on a calendar year or
This is,
on your fiscal?
It's on their year, so it goes by quarter.
And they also, their contract also goes, so it exponentially increases when more customers come on. So there's,
We haven't had that many more customers.
well, we do, but there's like tiers. So if you cross over a tier into the 25,
more.
you pay more.
So do we know how much it would cost if we bring it in-house?
oh, no, I think we do. I mean, it's gonna be a one-time cost for some training. The module's 10 grand plus or minus to add. That would be an annually recurring cost.
Yeah.
Probably not quite 10, maybe 8 grand. I'd love to find a way to do it without adding staff. That's the key. So, let's, for sake of argument, let's say we add staff. Then our cost is maybe the same or maybe even a little bit higher. The question to me, isn't, it's because again, just back to that earlier discussion, all they're doing isn't going to be just collecting water bills or sending out water bills, right?
Yeah.
They're going to fill, need,
Some other-
there's some other thing. So, do we have another need? And this might be a mechanism to combine these things and facilitate several things at once at roughly the same cost and get additional benefit.
And that price won't change if we get 2,500 or 6,000
Right.
people.
But all the bills we send out, do we do in-house, we do out-of-house?
Pennachuck does everything.
No, for everything we do,
Oh.
Oh.
property taxes, excise
Combination.
taxes, so on. and so
We
forth.
generate the bills electronically and have to send, so our tax bills, we send to a third-party printer.
Oh.
So we don't print them and mail them. We pay a vendor to do that.
I'm just thinking, can we combine all of the billing that we do as a town
With one outside vendor
or in-house?
or in-house?
Oh, boy.
Or use an out-of-house printer, but, I mean, just get some economies of scale by bringing it all to one
Well, I find,
department.
since you brought up the tax, I'm more familiar with that, but I'm sure the water stuff isn't too much different. But the reason to outsource it is you talk about economies of scale. That's how you get economies of scale, because these companies do this for a number of towns and it's automated and it's automatic. Their price point is much lower because of the amount of work that they do for multiple towns. So our outside contract for that isn't huge. And they got the facilities to sort it and mail it very efficiently. So it gets out in a matter of a couple of days once we send them the file. So we
Fred,
can,
I can also speak to the fact that if you do it in-house, it gets really, really messy and the pressure on staff is crazy. Just a quick question, Rich. I have my water bill in front of me.
I just paid mine.
And I have less usage. I just happened to look at it. I hadn't, and it's almost doubled in price. Are you getting feedback from people in town that are noticing that it's gone up precipitously?
So our rates went up. It was August was the first bill that went up. I had probably only about 3 inquiries
Mhm,
about it going up.
But we've
mhm.
had a few, and I think it's partially because when we first accepted the regulations and we discussed water fees, we asked the select board at the time to let us increase the fees 2.5% every year, right? And they did not want to do that. And so what happened is we got into the construction of the water system and we never raised the fees. So you, as before August, you were paying the original fees from 10 years ago that we never increased over time. So this rate increase, when we presented it to the select board or the Board of Water Commissioners, was a big increase. They shouldn't be that way. It should be just either every year or every other year going up a certain
Done
percentage.
more often, so the increase is less.
Exactly.
The percentage is less.
Yeah.
And it's still really reasonable. I can say that from living in Boston, and
Yeah.
paying Boston water and sewer fees. This is pretty reasonable. When you think about you're paying for clean water, that doesn't muck up all of your everything. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and to Fred's earlier point, we did do a specific analysis of the costs of the enterprise fund. And these fees that you're paying now were supposed to be covering the cost of the operation and generating about 200,000 a year in excess capital costs. That didn't, the doubling of the ops contract wasn't contemplated in that. We knew it was going up. We didn't know it was going up that much. So, so there's that. I like to think of though that, it was a way to reward or incentivize the early adopters of the water connection by not having a crazy fee. But the timing of it was such that we've kind of built out almost all of our contracts now and built out, at 90, at this point, 98% or 96% of the towns connected. So it seemed like the right time that the early adopters weren't getting penalized for adopting early. They had a pretty attractive rate. And now that the vast majority of the towns connected, we need a real rate. And when it was with the information we had at the time, but now with these new contracts, we're going to be a little short. So we might need an adjustment, or we just need some big users to pay into the system. So. And I think this was Jerry. Jerry had this issue. He keeps bringing it up, and I'm sure it'll come up again. So another, probably good summer, early fall finance committee meeting topic might be, looking at these rates and looking at the costing that was done and the rates that were set to cover that. But also, that is not accounting for any indirect costs.
Public buildings.
And so I have a whole indirect cost allocation plan that kind of indicates those things that, we could consider at some point, but there's some philosophical thoughts about that. So, it's not as easy of just,
And the maintenance fees that we were hoping to capture by this water enterprise fund, are we gonna start to put those in the capital plan?
That was the plan.
yep. And that's also going back to full circle to what we talked about earlier. If these fees are now recovering costs for capital, assuming they worked out the way we had intended, we'd be charging people for the capital maintenance of this. So if you're not connected now, you're not paying that capital contribution. So if you don't connect for, say, 4 or 5 more years, you've gotten 4 or 5 years of, fine, you didn't have to pay an operating rate because you weren't using it, but you've escaped having to pay that capital cost. So that's the idea of the connection fee.
And Rich, I gotta say, I loved what you said. I wrote it down when I met with you. I also wrote it down that if we can incentivize people to hook up by realizing a discounted rate, or that the rate is going to go up a certain amount after a certain period of time, and I think we should make it a pretty narrow window to get people off their butts. Otherwise, they may just take the paperwork and it collects dust on their desks and they forget about it.
And I know it's an additional upfront cost, but really when people say to me all the time, well, why would I pay for water when it's free now? But your well isn't free. You're paying electricity as electric rates rise for that pump And if anyone's ever had a pump that malfunctioned and kept pumping, you know that it not only can burn out the pump, but it'll cost a lot of money in electricity. So there are expenses to having a private well too.
Mhm.
So if we had, let's say, for example, we had some excess free cash, and we decided to run a program for free connections for some number of people, some number that we're trying to achieve, would that, would we get the cost benefit of that back in usage?
I would say, where's mine? I connected 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It didn't hook me up for free.
Right.
No, no,
And he doesn't
I
even
don't
live
think
here.
it's, yeah, I don't think it should be free. I just think it should be that the rate is gonna go up to $1 million. I'm making this up, $1 million after July 31st of 2025. So do it now.
Well, I think the stumbling block always has been the cost of the hookup.
Yeah, yeah.
That's,
Hookup cost.
well, we do have a
We
long,
do have the betterment.
we do have a betterment program, and I think it's also eligible through the Aqua Fund for the town.
Yes.
Yep.
There's loan programs, 0, 1 or 2% interest.
Lower Cape Outreach too has helped a couple people.
Oh, that's nice.
So I think, just
It's interesting.
put it on my spring agenda with Kim, but we just gotta come up with a plan and put it out there, start marketing it and letting people know that we need to do this.
Yep.
It's hard to, those types of things require a lot of follow through, and it's a lot hard to follow through when you got, a million things happening every other day, so.
Right.
But we're just gonna have to do it.
Are there any other questions on the water
Yeah,
enterprise?
yeah, I just have one.
Sure, go
Kim,
ahead, Jerry.
When's tower number 2 coming online?
So it should be within the next month, Jerry.
All right,
So that's District H over off of Nauset Road.
thank you.
and will we take number 1, when are we gonna paint number 1?
A few
This
more
summer?
years.
Yeah,
Few more years.
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, right? That we talked to, when we started this, it was like, oh, you have to paint him every 15 years. And I was like, well, that's
That's a long way off.
a long way off. And we are going to finish at the 10-year mark, which is kind of amazing.
Any other questions from folks? Thank you both very much for
you.
coming out on a snowy evening
Thank you.
and answering our questions.
Always good to see you, Kim.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to the agenda. I don't have anything under the new business today.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything under new business?
Okay, hon.
Roy?
Yes, just, have we gotten any feedback from the state? In terms of the federal cutbacks, how it's going to affect municipalities at this point?
No, I don't think the federal government knows how it's going to affect the federal government yet.
Sorry, I shouldn't
Well,
laugh. Not funny.
So, but I know it's a serious question and it's obviously a serious concern, but we do not know. I mean, the only bellwether we have is the SRF program, which is federally funded
Right,
through the EPA.
thank you.
When I said I don't have anything, I did see in the, and I spoke to Peter about this earlier, I did see in the legal part of the Cape Cod Times that the Cape Cod Tech is having a Zoom or in-person budget meeting scheduled for, let me see. For next week, next Thursday, February 27th at 6 o'clock. And I have the, if somebody wanted to be zooming in, I have the information gave the Zoom thing, so. I thought that was interesting. Have you heard?
Yep.
You've heard anything from, have you? have
Heard
you-
things, yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, I've heard things.
Oh, you've heard things. Can I ask what those things are?
Yep, well, I was gonna do it under my little update, but
Okay,
so
okay. You can, you want to wait?
go right in. Oh, well, yeah, wait.
So I'm going to go on to old business, capital project committee. And I guess my question on that is, I know you mentioned that we're appealing the issue in March.
Mhm.
Has a date been set for that, and how does that work?
The appeal is March 3rd. The town will do it formally in writing and you have to submit, you can register and submit questions, or comments. It's a very formal hearing and it's for both the intended use plan for clean water and for drinking water. So it's both sides, so.
So how does it work? I mean, you've submitted something.
Well, we've never had to appeal it before, so
okay.
this is a first for us. But it's a statewide, what I guess I'm saying is it's a statewide program. They have one Zoom call. Anyone with any questions statewide has to register and go through this process. We have, obviously, our wastewater consultants are preparing our appeal because it's, it's like a legal appeal. I mean, I can beg them, but it's not going to matter what I say.
Yeah.
We've also had several letters. So the association.
Preserve Cape Cod.
Preservation of Cape Cod. They've submitted a letter. The Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund is going to submit a letter. Neither one of those letters, though, are specific to our particular case. What they're asking for is to remove the $50 million cap and to make the funding go, from year to year for a whole project. So, I mean, that would help us, but that wouldn't bring us forward this year. It would help us maybe next year. So, I have a Cape and Islands Water Protection meeting on Monday, so we have to just kind of stay tuned. Julian Sear and Hadley Letty are coming to talk to the select board on Monday night. So lots of very smart people are working on it, but I just don't know, it's all about money. It really isn't about that they don't want to help us. It's about, do they have the sufficient funds to
Everybody
do
that's
it?
looking for it.
Exactly. So.
Okay. I don't know if there's anybody else wanted to, I know you're on the capital projects committee, as is Peter and Steve. Yeah. Is it,
I think
is-
what Jackie said is right. We're gonna stay in the queue. We're gonna keep going with the design. You
Mhm.
never know, things could change and as Rich said in the last meeting, if we're shovel ready.
We want to be ready.
get in
Yep.
there.
Mhm, mhm.
But just stay hopeful.
And I don't know if Peter wants to say anything on the high school, but the high school project is moving along
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
swiftly.
Are we still, is it still going to be finished by around December 2025? Peter?
Yeah, sooner than that. Well,
Yeah, I thought it was sooner than that.
they're trying to get it all set for the start of school next year, September. And maybe then they've got to deal with the modulars and a little bit of landscaping after that, but they're on schedule. On budget is another story. It's, we're scrapping away to try to stay within that contingency budget, but we're still getting hit with change orders. We got over 400 change orders so far. So there won't be any left over, that's for sure.
What can you tell us about the modulars? They're trying to sell the whole kit and
Yeah.
caboodle?
Yeah, they've been trying to sell them for a few years or for quite a while, or at least line somebody up. And we've had a few people that seemed real interested and they've dropped out and they have another one now, but nothing that's ready to talk about yet. But they're working hard to try and find somebody to either to buy them or possibly just to take them so that we don't have to pay for demolishing.
Peter, has the committee, though, we haven't officially gone out to bid with an RFP to get someone to bid on those, have we?
I don't, not that I know of, Jackie, but I
Because
know
that might be an idea, just
people are
to,
working behind the scenes, but
Yeah.
yeah, at this point, it's getting pretty close, so we should, all systems go on that,
Yeah.
yep. Maybe you could,
I'll suggest
help,
it.
help Greg with that or something, yeah.
Anybody else have any comments under the capital project committee? School facility study, I guess we're going RFP.
Yes, and they're trying to schedule the first meeting of that committee so that, for the week after next, I think.
And Peter, you were on the regional, and Jerry for that matter, on the regional agreement. I think we talked about working on it for about 3 months and then putting something in place. Is that still the case?
They
Oh.
haven't even called a meeting yet.
Oh,
Yeah, we haven't had one meeting on that.
According, I managed to talk to Peter Lombardi, and who thinks that they were waiting for some response from Brewster. And I don't know if Brewster's done that. And then his thoughts are, Peter thinks that the new superintendent is a fly in the ointment, in the sense that you're going to delay waiting for the new superintendent. But that's all I know. I've heard nothing else from neither Jackie or Peter.
It's been crickets.
Yeah.
so you're saying is that because the new superintendent has
No,
been,
that's a guess. That's only a guess.
I'm sorry.
It's only a guess from Peter Lombardi. That's all.
Okay.
I mean, they're up to their eyeballs in the budget right now, so that may be why they're kicking the can on this.
Yeah.
Well, between the high school project and the budget, and there's a lot going on.
Alrighty, I'm down to town manager's report. But one thing, I have frequently asked Kayla to have her send me the town manager report so I can, because I send it out to the other members of the finance committee.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get it and sometimes
Sometimes
I
you don't. Well, sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't,
Yes.
is one of the problems. Like, I don't do a formal report for every meeting, but I do have one for Monday night's meeting, so I will have her send it to you tomorrow. Yeah.
You could send that to me.
Just putting some finishing touches on it.
Okay, so if, I greatly appreciate it, because if you could send it to me,
Yeah.
I get it out to everybody in the finance committee.
And the only other thing I'm doing, Rich and I did today, but I'm doing every Wednesday a sort of question and answer thing at the library. And I mean, the first one was very well attended. I think I had 13 or 14 people. Yesterday, we had maybe 3 to 5 people, so a few less. But it's really interesting to me because I am meeting people that normally would not participate in our government, which is good. But I do want to say, just in case anyone's watching this meeting, you can always call me at 774-801-3211. And I am here at Town Hall most days. So you can make an appointment to see me through Kayla, or just call me and leave a message and I'll get back to you, because I feel like people think I'm only available now
there.
Wednesdays at the library, which is odd to me. So I'm here.
So just.
And as Rich says, we'll meet you at 6 o'clock at night. We'll meet you on Saturday morning. We'll meet
He
you.
agreed to that. You're saying it. Has he agreed to that?
No, that's what
put it
he
out on
told me. He
Facebook.
put it
Told
on
everybody.
Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because everyone was
somebody
saying, we
complained.
work during the day. We can't come to
Can't see you.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
And you know, Jackie, I think some of that is being proliferated by one or two people on Facebook, where if
Yes.
you say green, they're going to say purple, and if you say orange, they're going to say turquoise.
Yeah.
And
Well, someone called for my
some
fire
of us are
yesterday.
doing our best to just, rise to the defense of the town and say, come on, knock it off. It's not fair, and get away from your keyboard and come in person.
Or call,
know.
or make an appointment after hours. I mean, we're really, honestly, I think anyone who's called us to ask us questions or to talk about an issue knows that we're probably both, Rich and I are nerds about it. I mean, we'll talk about anything related to town business for
Yeah,
as long as you
becoming,
want to.
And I
sedated
think people are
old
just
age.
complaining for the sake of complaining.
Yeah.
And you're not going to stop that. There's just one or two.
Yeah, and it's good. I think it's overall good. It got a little discouraging this week, but I think, overall it's been a
Oh, it
good.
does help, put things on the table. It does, I think you're right. The vast majority of people see it for what it is, and it gives us an opportunity to respond and put the right information out there. So,
Yeah,
like I said, I'm getting a little sedated in my age, but I'm thinking of reinventing my, I used to have a keyboard warrior club award that I would send out to people. Might have to get it with official town seal that we can send certificates out.
and
Well,
interestingly
on the
enough,
record, you guys, we appreciate you guys and how hard you work and all you're doing for all of us.
thank
So-
you. And ironically, I got a lovely email from a resident of another town who said that they thought this was a great idea and they wish their town did it. So see, sometimes.
Jackie, what's that number again?
Yeah.
774
Yeah.
801 3211. That's my direct line. It goes to my desk. Nobody answers it except me, so you can leave a message and I will call you back.
And also
And I
drop in
put
the
that
phone
on
book.
Facebook a million times and I've gotten one phone call in 10 years. So,
No, now I know how to reach you.
yeah.
What's been can you share with us what people have been asking you when, in these meetings? Has it been focused on water or?
So the first day was more or less like a part-time resident taxpayer meeting where literally you get everything, like one of everything. So, people who are concerned about the seashore, people who are concerned about the federal budget, people who are concerned about parking, road projects, wastewater. Last week we got two people interested in wastewater, one pro, one con, and then yesterday we had another. So for some reason, that one flyer that write-up that we put out for prepare for town meeting, those three things that went out, that got a lot of response because people are responding to that, which is interesting. But it's a mixed bag, but we did, I think every week we learn something. I think yesterday I really learned something about certain types of outreach we've got to do. And there's always something we can improve on. So it's very useful.
Yeah, and I think for the capital projects committee, which we got, 3 people here on that, I think, yeah. One topic of discussion when we get to that point at some months down the road, when we get a design and a site location of the DPW, I think that's important to the adjacent community, adjacent
Yeah.
neighborhoods.
Yeah, they're
And so,
worried.
I think there's a lot of value into some of the work that we're doing, like utilizing the depressions in the area to make the buildings not as tall and prominent. But maybe it's an opportunity to improve, trees and improve, maybe the fencing along there is looking a little decrepit. So maybe we can make some improvements that make the neighborhood look a little more attractive, give some assurances as to the type of activity that goes on there. You're not going to hear loud grinding noises. It's not a septage drop off, so you don't have the smell
Smell.
associated with the septage drop off. It's all piped in and treated before it even gets raised into the bed. So, just a lot of education and some assurance that visually that it's not going to be as impactful that people might worry about.
And then I think, the first gentleman who came in who's in favor of wastewater also had, a list of excellent questions. Is there going to be a betterment? Is it going to be on everybody's taxes or just mine? Things that some of them we can answer now and some of them we really can't until we get a little further along in the process. But again, it's very useful.
How was the response to, from the part-time resident taxpayers? How was the response to the residential tax exemption? in general?
In general, it's been, they're extremely upset. And I think there's lots of reasons why they give for being upset, but, personally, I think one of them is, nobody wants to be the them, the us and them kind of thing, and nobody wants to be the them. And so there's just a lot of issues, but the response has been dramatic in terms of they have already filed a public records complaint. They have already filed a petitioned article for town meeting. So they're taking actions that are going to cause a lot of work for staff to respond to and to react to. So, it's just like other communities that have gone through this. So
Mhm. I'm sorry. Wow.
we're sorry too, but it is what it is what it is. And
Yeah.
Speaking of that, or of the warrant, is the warrant still open?
the warrant will close Monday at 4.
And can you tell us yet if there are any other petitioned articles besides that one?
Just that one. It's a doozy though. It'll probably be
Oh, yeah.
talked about a lot. Yeah.
Oh, boy. We're inside, right? In the air
Yes, we're
conditioning room?
inside.
So I'm going to take that opportunity to segue into my update. You have an upcoming meeting next week for articles.
Right.
So we're starting drafting the warrant, and putting articles together probably tomorrow. I mean, we've started, but we're going to start putting it in the actual form. I don't know that Paul can make it. He can make the following week because there's conflicting meetings. So perhaps we can address some of the other articles and then save the zoning for the following week.
Because we had the CPA.
We have CPA, we have some special legislation.
Right.
We've got a handful of things. I don't know that we finalized them with the select board as to what's going to go on the warrant, but we certainly have the topics that we can discuss, so you're at least briefed on the topic. And some of them are final, like the CPAs are pretty much final recommendations.
And after Monday's meeting, we'll probably have more of a
Yeah.
solid.
Is this for next Thursday for us to meet? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, 4:00?
That's the schedule.
Okay.
So I'll try to get all those articles and out to you in advance, so we can talk about articles other than zoning, and then zoning will be a follow-up.
That's fine.
And then that aside, I think I will also send to you an updated budget document. So we've had some changes that we've talked about. So I need to update the budget for natural resources, which impacts DPW. Not a lot of money, just some less than probably $8,000. I probably need to address the budget that Adam spoke to you about last week or a couple weeks ago
Last week.
on dispatch overtime.
Mhm.
I do have the Cape Cod Tech budget, which I can send to you when I pull together the education services detail. But that came in lower. And so that's enables us to make these changes, kind of keep rearranging the chairs as information comes in. And we will still have and I spoke with the principal at the elementary school, and they have a draft budget, which still could improve, but even if it doesn't, we can accommodate. So with everything in and all the adjustments I have to make, we will still come out balanced. And then it really comes down to how hard are we going to get hit up on the Nauset district assessment. I think they're trying really hard to make their budget increases as minimal as possible. But that being said, there's other factors that are out of their control, like their revenues. Declining enrollment from Truro and Provincetown is probably going to be a negative impact to the revenue that pays for the budget. Although per pupil aid from the state has gone up a little bit, and shift in assessment. So we'll just have to see how that shakes out. But
Charter school kids. More kids going to the charter school this year too. It's the budget.
so bottom line is, we've done our job, so to speak, coming in under our tax levy limit. All things being equal, we need an override. We're fine. And we just have a few things to shake out. And then we got to see what what comes of the district budget and go from there. So I'll get all that updated in part of next week's update. I'll give you all the new numbers, how it plays out and how it looks. And then we'll be ready to receive and discuss the school stuff when that comes out.
And I have a question, about next week, with the CPA, the committee voted to, do the 3% exemption process. That should be in the warrant. How are
Well-
we proceeding with that?
That was a recommendation to the select board. The select board would place it in the warrant. I think initially we were very supportive of that. I'm sorry, which one are we talking about? The exemption or
The exemption,
the low income?
yes.
Yeah. So initially we were very supportive of that, but now with the RTE, we do not, our preference is to not add another burden
exemption.
when we're trying to process, 2,600 RTE applications for the first time.
I have a problem with that.
We'll go to the select board meeting and I'm sure they'll listen to you.
I mean, we have several exemptions going forward this year, Mary, and we only have so much in overlay to pay for it. I mean, every time you exempt something, I think that one is beneficial, but there's the residential tax exemption is more beneficial.
Well, it's a different type of exemption,
Yeah, and it goes to every
But everybody
resident.
would get it.
not everybody.
Everybody that's a resident.
Resident, but,
Well, everybody's a resident that applies.
yeah, right.
Well, do you think second homeowners would get the low income
No.
residential
definitely not.
exemption for this?
That's why I'm interested in having the CPA one in there, because of the people that it would be helping. Yeah. So,
Well,
because the committee voted to include it.
Well, it's on our list of warrant items to discuss with the select board.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you right now, if that's, it's gonna be a challenge for our staff without adding staff to process a residential tax exemption in year one. It's a lot of work. I have no doubt that Colleen and Alex are gonna do an amazing job and get it done, and I'll jump in where I can jump in to help. Mira's gonna help out. We're gonna shift some people around to make this happen.
And
So
it's
we don't
not that
have
we
to,
don't
so we
wanna
don't
do
have to add another person. And again, it's right, it's not that we don't want to do it, it's just we know that an RTE, if that's going to happen, is a lot of work. And so we don't want to be adding any further burden by having to process another 60, 70, 80 more applications that need attention and action when we've got 2,600 that we're required to.
Rich, just as a really sort of off the wall question, and you can roll this back 30 seconds if it's completely crazy, but how do you guys feel about qualified volunteers coming in and helping to
We can
help
on that.
where
In this
they
case,
can? Is it confidentiality
they have
issues?
confidential information,
Okay.
and especially in the
Yeah.
CPA one, it's an income
Right.
qualification, so.
Okay. All right. I just off the walls. Roll back 30 seconds. Sorry.
And the other thing I would like to have on the agenda for next week is, and Mira has been absent for a number of meetings, so if we could get our minutes, I don't like to be behind in posting our minutes, so I've got, well, obviously today's, last week's and the week before, so if you have the chance, we'd really appreciate getting those three meetings. The
Come a long way back in the day before Mira and you
Yeah,
had just
we didn't
me.
have any.
We're back like 8 or 9 for a while.
Yes, it's on my radar. You have them. You have them.
Yeah.
Remember, Fred, we had that remember, Jerry, we had that finance committee member who did a chart and all the minutes were just a chart of votes. It was awesome. It wasn't discussion. It was just like, it was awesome minutes. They really were.
Well, I was just asked to find strategic planning minutes going back to 2000 and I found some minutes for Stacy that back to 2021. She sent out a list of all of the minutes that she's looking for back to
Yeah.
2018 for the strategic planning committee.
Yeah.
And I've been going through some of my records and I found.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
But anyway. Okay, is there anything else to discuss before we adjourn? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Is it, was
I'll second it.
Roy,
Yes.
Fred? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0. And I have 612, something like, I'm never sure if this clock.
Thanks for all you do.
6:10, Mary, according to Apple